The HOA thought they had me cornered. A $50,000 fine for the outrageous crime of collecting rainwater from my own roof? They believed I'd fold, pay up, and stay quiet. But what they didn't know was that they had just picked a fight with the wrong neighbor. The barrels were nothing fancy, just blue, plastic drums I'd picked up at the hardware store, tucked neatly against the side of my house beneath the gutter pipes. They were quiet, unassuming, and to me, a small gesture towards self-sufficiency. Every drop of rain they caught felt like a victory against waste. But apparently, to the HOA, those barrels were a crime scene. The letter arrived on a Wednesday morning. My coffee had barely cooled when I saw the bold red "Notice of Violation" stamped across the envelope. My heart sank before I even opened it, because when you live under the iron grip of our HOA, a letter never brings good news. Inside, the words were cold, bureaucratic, and absurd. You are hereby fined $50,000 for unauthorized water collection. You are in violation of Section 14, Subsection C, Paragraph 7 of the Community Covenant. Failure to comply will result in additional penalties, property liens, and potential eviction proceedings. I read it twice, then a third time. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. $50,000 for what? Saving rain? Surely someone in the office had added an extra zero. But no. I flipped the page and saw photographs, grainy, black and white snapshots of my very own barrels, circled in red ink like evidence at a crime scene. They were serious, deadly serious. My first reaction was laughter, sharp and bitter. My second was rage. I slammed the letter on the counter and muttered aloud, "Not a chance." This wasn't the first ridiculous rule the HOA had tried to enforce. We'd all heard the stories. Neighbors fined for leaving trash cans visible an hour too early, threatened for planting the wrong color flowers, even ordered to repaint shutters because the shade of blue clashed with the community aesthetic. But this was different. This was my home, my roof, my water, falling freely from the sky. And now, they wanted $50,000 for it. That evening, I walked outside to check the barrels again, half expecting them to have magically turned into contraband. They looked back at me, still harmless, still quietly collecting the drizzle that trickled down. As I stood there, the neighborhood around me felt different. Windows glowed, curtains twitched, and I realized someone had reported me. Someone nearby had seen the barrels and run, crying to the HOA. I clenched my fists. If they thought I was going to roll over, they had another thing coming. The next day, I marched straight to the HOA office. It wasn't far, just a sterile little building near the front gates of the community, with neatly trimmed hedges and a flagpole that screamed authority. Inside, the air smelled of printer ink and old carpet. Behind the desk sat Carol, the HOA secretary. She was the kind of woman who thrived on gossip, her eyes sharp behind cat-eye glasses. She didn't even look surprised to see me storm in waving the violation notice. "Good morning, Mr. Lawson," she said sweetly, though the smirk tugging at her lips betrayed her satisfaction. "Hear about the violation, I assume?" "Violation?" I snapped. "This has to be a joke. $50,000? For collecting rainwater." She folded her hands. "It's clearly stated in the community covenant. No unauthorized water storage. It creates breeding grounds for pests, lowers property values, and disrupts the aesthetic harmony of our neighborhood." I nearly laughed at her face. Aesthetic harmony? They're barrels, Carol, tucked behind my house, where no one even sees them. Her tone sharpened. "Nevertheless, rules are rules. You signed the covenant when you bought your home." I clenched the paper in my fist. "I'm not paying this fine. Not a single cent." Her smirk widened. "Then the board will pursue further action." "Good day, Mr. Lawson." I walked out shaking, rage bubbling in my chest. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the violation letter. My wife, Sarah, eventually came down and found me hunched over with a cup of cold coffee. "You're still up?" she asked softly. "How could I sleep?" I muttered. "They think they can rob us." $50 grand, Sarah. That's not a fine. That's extortion." She sat beside me, placing a gentle hand on mine. "So what do we do?" I sighed. "We fight. We're not rolling over for them." The next morning, I started making calls. I spoke to a lawyer friend, who nearly laughed himself off the phone when I told him the fine. 50,000? For rain? That's insane, he said. But don't underestimate them. HOAs love to bully. They'll threaten liens, foreclosure, whatever it takes to break you. His words only fueled my resolve. By the weekend, whispers were spreading through the neighborhood. I could feel eyes on me whenever I stepped outside. At the mailbox, Mrs. Peterson from 2 doors down leaned over and whispered, "I heard about the barrels. Careful, the board doesn't like troublemakers." Later, my neighbor Mark stopped me while I was mowing the lawn. "Hey man, I think it's ridiculous what they're doing. It's just water. If you need me to back you up, let me know." That was the moment I realized this wasn't just my fight. Everyone here was living under the thumb of the HOA. They all feared the board, but maybe, just maybe, someone had to stand up first. A week later, I received another letter. This one was nastier. Failure to comply has resulted in escalation. Interest and fees bring your balance to $53,200. Further refusal will result in lien placement on your property. They weren't backing down, but neither was I. I spent nights researching state laws on water rights. To my shock, I discovered something powerful. In our state, rainwater collection wasn't illegal at all. In fact, state law specifically allowed homeowners to collect it for personal use. The HOA rule directly contradicted state law. Armed with that knowledge, I knew I had leverage. The next HOA board meeting was my first battleground. The community hall was filled with rows of folding chairs, the American flag hanging behind a long table where the board members sat like royalty. At the center was Richard Mason, the HOA president, a tall, broad man with slick-back hair. He had the smug air of someone used to absolute control. When the time came for public comments, I stood. "I'd like to address my violation," I said, my voice steady. Murmurs rippled through the room. Everyone already knew. Richard raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Lawson, your violation is documented and clear. Your rainwater barrels are prohibited, and your fine stands." I pulled a folder from under my arm. "Actually, according to state law, rainwater collection is fully legal. Your covenant is not only unreasonable, it's unenforceable. You can't override state law." The room went silent. Richard's face darkened. "The board has the right to establish rules for the community. Not when those rules break the law." I shot back. Gasps echoed. A few neighbors even clapped. Richard's glare could have burned holes through me. "Mr. Lawson, if you continue this disruptive behavior, the board will take further action. Consider this your final warning." I smiled. "Do your worst." That night, I knew one thing for certain. The battle lines had been drawn.